Yo, my people, what's good? Today I'm going to be breaking down how to make emotional R&B samples for someone like Drake. And yeah, man, without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So first, I started off with this chord progression. It's a rose piano. So as you can tell, it's very emotional, very R&B like. So I started off with these chords. All it is a we're actually working in the D sharp minor scale, but I started on the B as a root note. So it starts as a B major 7th, goes down to the F major 7th, and then it goes back up to a G sharp minor 7th. And the reason I'm using seventh chord, is because when you use a 7th chord, basically it just gives it that nice emotional R&B sound that you want. Otherwise, if I didn't have that, it would sound like this, which still sounds good, but it doesn't sound like as much of an R&B sounding chord as you would have wanted it to. So then, adding to the chords, I added this little strum section at the top of the chord. It's a C sharp major 7th, and this is what that sounds like by itself. And the purpose of this is basically it just adds a bit of movement to the sample, it makes it a bit more interesting, and yeah, man. Otherwise, it would be a little bit boring if you just had the chords. So this is what it'd be like just with the chords. And that's all right. You can that's not bad. You can have that by itself, and then you can just fill it up with other melodies. But I decided to use this technique just to make the chord progression a bit more interesting. And then after that run, I done another tiny little run, but with this one instead, I just used the same notes, but I shortened all the notes, so it makes it sound like it's almost like a like a bit of ear candy, or it's like using a phrase, but instead of using a phrase, I just made it with the little run instead. And then finally, at the end, all I did was add these little filler notes, again, just to make it a bit more interesting, add a bit of melody to the sample. Okay, so after that, all I did was copy and paste, and I just added the same progression and used a pad sound instead. And this was just to add a bit of atmosphere, fill the sample out a little bit, and just layer, because with these type of samples, layering is very important, because you don't want to go too crazy with all the different melodies and different progressions and stuff. So to make it sound full, you want to layer things. And then after that, I added another layer. This time, it's not the whole chord progression. All it is just the start of the B note, and then the F sharp, and then the G sharp. And it's a string sound. And the reason I've done this, and I've left a massive gap here, is basically just to, I don't want to overpower the melody, and I wanted to keep it interesting as well. If it was just playing the whole time, it would probably sound good, but it would probably get a bit overpowering, it would get a bit repetitive, and you just want to make some movement in the sample. Just to like make it a bit more interesting, do you know what I mean? And the reason I chose to go for a string sound is because if you listen to like old soul samples, R&B samples, etc., a lot of them have like nice sounding vintage strings in them. And obviously with a Drake song, he samples a lot of old songs, or the samples sound old and stuff, so you want to kind of mimic. You get a thumbs up there? No way. But yeah, but yeah, you want to kind of mimic that sort of sound. All right, so after that, I wanted to add a sort of counter melody instead of just layering the chords again. So basically, I found this glockenspiel one shot from Carvey, and this is what that sounds like. So as you can see, there's not too much going on. It leaves a lot of space still. It's not too overpowering. It's just there. It's basically there in the background as a bit of ear candy, bit of melody to the sample to make it a bit interesting. Because if it was just chords and just layering, it would obviously get a bit boring. So yeah, this comes in the sample in the chorus, and then it comes in a bit later in the verse. All right. So after that, I just added the bass, and I decided to go for like a electric guitar bass. And this is what that sounds like. So as you can see, it's a nice little bass pattern. It's got a bit of movement to it as well. The good thing about using bass guitars is you can actually make like a little melody with it. You can make like its own little melody. Because if you think about it, when someone's playing a real bass guitar, they're actually playing it like a guitar almost. But if it was just a sub bass, it's a bit different. Obviously, you can still make melodies with a sub bass, but I feel like with a guitar bass, you have a lot more room to work with. But yeah, it's pretty much just following the root notes of each chord. With apart from like this bit here, it's like a little filler note. Got filler notes here just to like transition into the next 4 bars. And then again at the end here, there's this little like run that goes up and down. And this is again just a transition into the next 4 bars and kind of signals. Sorry, that is like the end of the pattern. Apologies. Had to go for a quick toilet break. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, after that, I added a vocal. This is what that sounds like. So as you can tell, that sample is pretty crazy, I can't lie. The thing about these type of samples, like these type of melodies that you make, the vocal is very, very important. Very, very important. It's probably the most important aspect maybe, because like I've mentioned it before, a good vocal can make a bad melody better, but a bad vocal can make a good melody bad, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a good vocal, and yeah, it suits this style of melody perfectly as well. All right, and then after that, all I did was add this little saxophone from I think I found it on Splice, for like the verse section, just to switch it up a little bit, and give a bit of variation to the sample. And this is what that sounds like by itself. Didn't actually get it off Splice. I actually got it off Carvey, apparently. I didn't realise. But yeah, yeah, it's a really nice sounding saxophone. It suits the style perfectly. It's nice and emotional. It's got a bit of a soulful vibe to it, a bit of an R&B vibe to it. And yeah, man, then after that, again, I just added this from one of Carvey's packs as well. This little drum break. So yeah, I added that just because, like, obviously, if you're making a sample, like an old school sample, a lot of them have actually like drums in the background. If you're gonna sample something, it would have drums in the background. So if you add drums to your own samples, it makes it sound more realistic and it makes it sound more like an actual old sample, if that makes sense. But yeah, man, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the mixing for you guys. Alright, so for the piano, I started off with this decimort sound. And what decimort does, it's like a desampler. Basically, it gives it that nice underwater R&B effect, if you want to put it in simple terms. And this is what that sounds like. Well, this is what it would sound like without it. And then with it. So as you can tell, it makes a nice little difference. After that, I added some reverb. I added quite a lot of reverb on the wet knob. Bit of decay as well. Added an RC20, just to give that nice sort of vintage sampled sound. Added a delay as well, just a very short delay. You can bet it's barely there in the background. You can barely hear it, but like you can feel it. Do you know what I mean? Just added an EQ, just taking off some of the low end. For the pad sound, all I did was add an EQ. I took away some of the low end and I took away some of the high end. Just so it sits nicely in the back of the mix, as like an atmospheric thing. That's the word. After that, I added this is for the strings. Added some reverb. Not too much reverb, to be fair. Bit of RC20 again, just to give it that nice vintage sound. And then I added an EQ, taking out a lot of the low end. And then I took away a little bit of the high end, added a little shelf on it. Again, just want it to sit nicely in the background of the mix. And then for the glockenspiel, bit of reverb, quite a lot of reverb on the wet knob and quite a lot on the decay. And then for the EQ, I took away all of the low end and just obviously just shelved it put it in the high end, let it sit nicely in that little section. Guitar, bass. All I did was add an EQ. I took away a lot of the high end. I took away some of the super sub end. That just makes it this section here, you can't even hear it. It just makes the mix sound muddy. So you don't want that. So you just take away a little bit of that. And I think I took away a tiny bit of the low mid here. And for the vocal, added a decimort again, obviously giving it that nice underwater effect. Added a bit of reverb, bit of delay as well, bit of RC20. Makes it sound a bit gritty, it makes it sound a bit more emotional. And then for the EQ, took away the low end, I tucked a bit of the mid end in here, and then obviously I got rid of some of the high ends. But the decimal, basically the decimal also, the reason there's no high end here is because the decimal actually takes that away when it like desamples it. And then finally for the saxophone, added some reverb, quite a lot of reverb actually, a lot of decay, a lot on the wet knob. I took the dry knob down a little bit, so it sits nicely in the mix. It's not too harsh. A bit of delay, and then just an EQ, taking away the low end, and then just taking away a little bit of the high end. But yeah, that's how you make emotional R&B samples for Drake, or Mars Malone, or in the UK, or someone like that. Anyone that raps on these type of like emotional R&B sounding beats. But yeah, man, thank you a lot for watching. I dropped a free loop kit last week, so make sure to go download that for free. I got more free loop kits coming, more tutorials coming. Anything else you want to see, make sure to subscribe. Got to get that subscriber count up because it's looking peak right now. I'll be honest, we're on that under 300. So let's get that up, yeah. And yeah, man, thank you a lot for watching. I'll see you in the next video.